Our next panel, we're going to be looking at decarbonising business.
And thank you everyone for what promises to be a lively discussion between our distinguished panellists this morning on decarbonising business. So thank you for joining us. And just as an aside, in reference to the last panel, I was delighted to see that Marrakesh at COP22 embraced Formula E as well before the climate talks last December, so that was quite exciting too. We've heard, I'm going to move swiftly into this because we've got some time to make up and I want to concentrate on the thoughts of the panellists. But essentially we're here today to talk about best practice and what business is doing in terms of decarbonisation and really becoming much more efficient with resources and effective carbon footprints. One of the things that I do as my day-to-day job is talk to investors, and we're getting a lot more questions around best practice and what businesses are doing. So without further ado, I'm going to move on to the first person that I'd like to hear from, Mr. Dietmar Seersdorfer from Siemens in the Middle East. Now, Siemens is particularly well known for its environmental portfolio, but it's also set itself some very ambitious targets in relation to this space. Dietmar, what exactly is Siemens doing to support the targets of the Paris Agreement?
Zoe, thank you for this introduction. As Siemens, as a large corporation, we have very early realized in COP21, 22 already that we also, as a large corporation acting globally, need to contribute. And we have set ourselves as a company a goal to reduce CO2 emissions quite dramatically. So the first goal that we have set is that we want to reduce till 2020 by half, and 2030 we want to be completely CO2 neutral. So this is of course affecting all of our operations, product designs and all the stuff that we are doing, and we have a quite good action plan in place. So far, after 2 years, when you look from 2014 to 2016, we have achieved 20% of that goal, so we reduced our CO2 emissions by 1.7 million metric tons on our global operations. And being here in Abu Dhabi and being in the heart of where the energy change in the global world is also driven with this conference and with this summit, we are also very proud as we have just in Masdar out a very prominent building which is a LEED Platinum building, which was the first one in the Middle East inaugurated 3 years ago. And we have quite some experience now also operating such a building in such an environment. And we could reduce our electricity and water consumption compared to an average building in this region, but also on a global base, quite dramatic. So in water consumption, this means about 50%, more than 50% reduction, and when you look at electricity consumption, even further, beyond 60%. So that's quite some good achievements. What is our action plan that we are really going for on a global scale? On a global scale, we are looking in all of our buildings. An infrastructure, we want to enhance, of course, the usage of renewable technology. So we have a 100 million euro investment program instated for the whole company. So we put solar panels, for example, on the rooftops of our buildings, which we have across the world. And we also look for the payoff of that. So from 2020 onwards, we also look forward to gain every year on year, 20 million out of that investment that we are doing now in the next years. Additionally to that, we look into distributed generation capacities. We also look where it is possible, and we have just in the other panel heard about markets, how they are adapting now to deliver also renewables to the customers. So wherever possible, we try to buy also green electricity. So in many markets this is possible. You can select to buy green electricity and drive with that also the implementation of new technology. So we are doing that and fostering that as well. On top of that, we are also looking, of course, into our product designs so that we enhance the product designs and also use our digital technology to design products in a digital way so that we don't need to test them too much, we don't need to build them too much, we don't have too much waste. So this is a technology that we also use for our own purposes, for the product design for our customers. So there are many actions which we have in place and which we are looking forward to implement. On top of that, we try to work with partners and customers, and I'm happy to have Omar here close by because also with Omar we are working, and with ADNOC we are working on technologies to implement.
Well, that's certainly a good segue into ADNOC and the work that Omar's doing. But first, you know, the 2030 CO2 neutral target is very ambitious. So I commend Siemens on the efforts there. Moving on to Omar, I mean, the UAE submitted its climate plan for the Paris Agreement in 2015 and was subsequently ratified. And parts of those plans are talking about addressing gas flaring and improving energy efficiency in energy-intensive industries. I mean, what is ADNOC doing on a strategic level to ensure that its new energy efficiency targets continue to be expanded upon through other strategic initiatives?
Yeah, thank you, Zoe. Energy efficiency is part of ADNOC's new overall strategy, and it's also part of our operating model, which delivers on 4 key pillars: the people, efficiency, performance, and profitability. And for the efficiency part specifically, I'm pleased to announce that ADNOC has decided to put a target of 10% increase in energy efficiency by 2020. This is already resulted in a reduction of about 3.1 million tons of CO2. And also, what this energy efficiency does is that it helps us on many fronts on these pillars, one of which is the reduction of our own usage of gas. We're going to have a reduction of roughly 150 million scuffs a day. This will allow us to provide more gas to our customers, especially for clean power generation. On another component, which is the profitability, this is going to help us reduce our costs by approximately $1 billion by 2020. This CO2 impact is also the equivalent of 650,000 car journeys a year.
Wow.
So as you can see, not only it's an impact on us as ADNOC at the corporate, but also our operating companies, our partners. It's part of our overall strategy and our initiatives. So it's a critical part of our day-to-day work. We're also working with our partners and working with our stakeholders to, one, provide enabling options for them, and also set energy efficiency criteria within our projects. And all of this in order for us to support an energy efficient economy for UAE.
Thank you. And so all of that really adds up to ADNOC improving products and services for customers and being more efficient in terms of its own carbon footprint. Has it set out any particular targets, numerical targets for resource efficiency, or is it much more around a strategic approach to the issue?
It's a much more involved. So it's the overall target of 10% increase in efficiency is one. Yeah. That translates into a number gas-wise. It translates into a budget target for our operating companies, and it translates into a lot of initiatives that all of our companies across the group are working on. So there are a lot of details, but it all cascaded through the main objective of one, of course, having better efficiency, improving on our value proposition for our stakeholders, and also making more gas available for our customers in a sustainable way.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Now I'd like to turn to Neri from Axel from Statoil. Well, we know that the global oil economy or the global oil industry is an integral part of the global economy, but we've got large challenges to address the goals of the Paris Agreement. And I know Statoil has been working with ADNOC since 2010. Can you tell us a little bit about what your best practices are across the region and what the challenges are in implementing best practice on a regional basis?
Yeah, thank you, Zoe. We are saying at Statoil, we don't question the climate science, we act on it, and we see a transition to a low energy as a key driver in our businesses. And we have decided to take a proactive approach and actively shape the energy transition through 3 steps. And that is that our strategies that reflects the policies we operate in and what we expect to come. We believe that the winner in our industry is the low cost and low carbon producer. The second area is the reduction of our own emissions. You know, an energy company like mine, we need to continuously drive operational efficiency and lower emission and cost. The carbon intensity of our current production is around 10 kilo per barrel, and the industry average is 18. And we have set ourselves a target that by 2020 we should have 9 kilo per barrel. And since 1996, Statoil has injected and permanently stored 23 million tons of CO2. And we believe in an open sharing philosophy in this area, and all our data and learning are shared with the industry and academia and research institutes and so on. The third pillar, it is to grow a renewable business at scale. And we have already a significant footprint in offshore wind conventionally. And then last year, we sanctioned the first offshore floating windmill project. And we believe that offshore floating wind creates and unlock opportunities and for renewable energy for countries with a deep water coastline.
Thank you. And just like to pick up on a point that you mentioned about low cost. Now, Norway has been quite progressive in terms of carbon pricing, and of course that's affected Statoil over the years. What's Statoil's experience in relation to national systems to implement carbon pricing, and can you share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you. We believe there are two policies that can drastically reduce CO2 emission short term. One that is carbon pricing, and the other one that is switch from coal to gas. And first, the price of carbon is probably the most efficient policy instrument that can accelerate a change in the energy mix and shift behavior both among producer and consumer. The carbon price creates a business opportunity, and it creates a basis for investments in CO2 reducing measures like we have seen in Norway. It also drives us as an industry to think about efficiency, cost, optimization, remote operations. An example in the latest we are doing is that we are working with our suppliers where we have dynamic positioning vessels and rigs, and we are working on hybridification of these vessels. Secondly, if policymakers also are serious about tackling the climate change, a dramatic and rapid reduction in the amount of coal in the energy mix is obviously an urgent priority. Coal emits twice as much carbon emission as natural gas consumed. And since coal is mainly used for power generation, renewable and gas is a good substitute for that. And we see that in the US over the last decade, the shift from coal to gas has reduced the emissions by 12%.
Thank you. Certainly, one of the ways to drive change is through pricing carbon effectively, and one of the things that we're watching is the progression of the Chinese efforts in scaling up emissions trading across provinces. So there are certainly some catalysts for pricing coming through the course of 2017. So far today we've heard a bit about best practice, we've heard about the UAE and a little bit about Norway's experience. I'd now like to turn to Brazil and to Dr. João Carlos, who is Secretary for Energy and Mining in the state of Sao Paulo, and ask if you wouldn't mind sharing some of your experience with the audience in terms of addressing energy efficiency and decarbonisation challenges in the Brazilian oil and gas industry. Over to you.
Yes. To be absolutely concrete, I will read to you because we have important numbers to offer. The use of ethanol as fuel brings many advantages. Amongst great qualities, the fact of being renewable, clean and sustainable makes ethanol unique as the current replacement option for fossil fuels in the world battle for reduction of emissions and, more important, in the preparation of our planet for generations to come. According to International Agency of Energy, the utilization of ethanol generated from sugar cane, when compared to gasoline, reduces 89% of gas emissions composed by carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxides, are then responsible for the acceleration of the undesirable greenhouse effects. Although at a smaller scale, ethanol based on other sources also contributes to the reduction of emissions, about 46% for wheat, 45% for grains like corn. The emissions from the transportation sector responds for 15% of total global greenhouse gases emissions, and its participation keeps growing. Gasoline and diesel are the fossil fuels mostly responsible for that. Their use around the globe is in the opposite direction of emissions reductions commitments assumed by many countries in important protocols that have been signed recently. Besides that, due to longer hydrocarbon chains in their structure, gasoline and diesel launch to the atmosphere unburned compounds like carcinogenic benzene, absorbed or not in soot particles, which can provoke intense lung damage as well as sulfur dioxide responsible for acid rain. In order to increase the efficiency of spark ignition internal combustion engines, and therefore to reduce emissions for the same travel distance, it is necessary to use high-octane gasoline, avoiding toxic compounds. For that, oxygenates like ethanol, ETBE, MTBE, and methanol are blended in gasoline as octane improvers. In 2015, about 10% of world gasoline consumption were of oxygenates, 130 billion liters, from which 70 billion liters were ethanol. MTBE, formerly the most used octane improver, has been replaced mainly by ethanol for reducing environmental impacts. MTBE is a volatile, flammable, and colorless liquid that is sparingly soluble in water. Besides its higher GHG emission, due to the contamination risk of groundwater, it has been prohibited in many countries. In Brazil, a very successful program known as Pro-Alcohol for the addition of ethanol derived from sugarcane to gasoline started already in the 70s and has been very important for the development of a lower carbon economy since then. Nowadays, 100 billion liters of ethanol are used as an octane improver in 29 billion liters of gasoline in the country. In parallel, other 18 billion liters are used as a direct fuel in Brazilian flex fuel vehicles. We need to remember that 92% of the total cars in Brazil are flex fuel. The use of vehicular ethanol has been very important for GHG emissions reductions, but it has been essential for the replacement of tetraethyl lead with its impact in air pollution and MTBE with its negative effects on groundwater quality. Furthermore, it is already a concentration of business connected to these renewable sources. In Brazil, more than 40% of total primary energy supply are from renewable sources, and in the state of São Paulo, this share is higher than 58%, while more than 80% of the electricity produced are from renewable sources, mainly hydro and biomass. The Brazilian sugarcane industry is a key segment in the national economy, generating $36 billion in gross annual revenue and employing more than 1 million people. About 60% of this industry is located in the state of São Paulo. And since the beginning of the Pro-Alcohol program, it has permanently improved in efficiency and productivity. Nowadays, the industry in the state, besides producing sugar and ethanol, generates bioelectricity from bagasse and sells surplus about 4 terawatt-hour per year to the interconnected grid. Moreover, there are additional opportunities being explored in the recovery and processing of stillage to produce biomethane that could substitute the diesel fuel used in agriculture and be injected in the natural gas pipeline network available in the States.
Well, Brazil certainly has made a lot of use of its natural resources to enable a sustainable economy on the power side and through biogas. I'd now like to move on to thinking about power and desalination, and I'd like to welcome Sebastian here from ENGIE, who are involved in 2 critical resource management issues for the UAE, power and water. And I'd like to just ask, what is ENGIE doing to enable the UAE to meet its goals?
So thank you. 24% is the NDC for clean energy target for UAE. It has been complemented recently by an even more ambitious target for 2050, 44% of clean energy. And we are fully aligned with ENGIE with this ambition because, interestingly enough, we have more or less the same. We have said that we will basically have a 24%, 25% of clean energy in our energy mix by 2020. So now how we do that here in the UAE? 3 things. First thing, operational efficiency. And I think it's very important that we have developed 10 gigawatts of power in the UAE so far with our partners, delivering 600 MIGD. I think this is very significant for 2 reasons. First, security of supply. And second, this is gas, natural gas with efficient CCGT. And I do believe that gas is the best ally for renewable energy and is the best ally to go to this energy transition. That's very important, I think. And doing this properly through operational efficiency will enable us to tackle not only the 24%, but the 76%, which of course count a lot in this whole balance. So based on that, we have created this year a team which is called ENGIE Power and Water Middle East, with it basically focusing on operational excellency around 3 aspects. The first one is to reduce the usage in gas for our CCGT. The second one is to reduce the consumption of chemicals for the desal water plant. This is also very important. And the third one is innovation. Innovation through digital, innovation through partnering with the OEM, GE, Siemens, to try to have a better efficiency in our plants. So that's the first aspect, operational excellency. The second aspect that we need to do is to increase the share of solar energy in our energy mix. This is very important, and we are focusing on 2 levers. The first one is large-scale PV plants. ENGIE today has developed 1 gigawatt of solar energy around the world, if we account for what is under construction. And based on that, and based also on the recent acquisition of Solar Direct, which is an EPCist, we think here we can be, I would say, more efficient and more competitive for the current large PV plant in the UAE. The second part is CSP, concentrated solar. Here we have some projects already in place in South Africa, and based on that, we'll also try to tender and to win, of course, what will be brought on stage here in the UAE. So that's the second aspect. The third one, which is also very important to me, is energy efficiency. We call it energy solution at ENGIE because it's broader than just energy management. For us, it's basically 2 things. First thing is how to manage better energy, and usually it's energy management through facility management. We have here a joint venture with Basics called Cofeli Basics, and here we do facility management and energy efficiency. The important point about that is that we need to have a framework with, I would say, contractual agreements which has a clear goal to save energy in facility management. This is very important. I think on that we need to improve collectively. The second aspect is what we call, I would say, energy solution around the cities. So it's green mobility, it's smart grids, and all this should also be taken into consideration when we look at energy solutions. At ENGIE, we have Cofely as a big subsidiary which is active in this domain, and we will bring those skills in the region.
Thank you, Sebastian. So the narrative of this morning's panel has been around best practice. We've heard about a 2030 zero carbon neutral goal from Siemens, and very, very numerical targeted approach. We've heard from Omar on strategy that ADNOC's taking in relation to the UAE plan. From Statoil, again, a targeted approach, but also looking at how carbon pricing at the Norwegian level has changed business drivers for Statoil. We've talked about energy substitution in Brazil, and then talked about power and water and operational excellence from ENGIE in the Middle East. But the key points that Sebastian picked up on was innovation. And I'd now like to welcome Deb from GE, from the Eco-Imagination side, to talk us through what we're about to see in terms of innovation and digital analytics and how that can really push the agenda further on decarbonisation.
Great, thanks, Zoe. So as many of you are well aware, GE makes some of the world-class wind turbines, gas turbines, locomotives, aircraft engines. And eventually all these big machines are going to be connected. And at GE, we said someone else can lead this or we can lead this. And we believe this is going to happen through the industrial internet. Industrial internet is sensors, computing power, machine learning, as well as powerful analytics that give us insights into optimizing both assets and operation. So to harness the potential of the industrial internet, GE has built Predix. It is an open-sourced, cloud-based operating system for industry, and it is at the foundation of the work we are doing around digital. We made this open source because it's going to require innovation from many, not just GE. So we've built the industrial internet, Predix, with a very secure, unique architectural environment that third-party computer engineers can build applications, microservices on. Today, we have 25,000 developers working on the Predix platform. So, we are in the early days of the industrial internet, and we wanted to do an analysis around what is the potential across a handful of industries, and we worked with Intel to quantify this. So we looked at power, aviation, rail, lighting, ground transportation, and what we found is emerging digital solutions could save over $80 billion annually in fuel cost, and it could help us close the gap on COP21 by almost 30%. 800 million tons of carbon could be reduced annually from digital solutions. We are working with many customers in the region. We are working with RasGas on global leadership around digital solutions in the LNG sector. We are also working with Saudi Aramco around asset performance management, and of course, Masdar around, wastewater to energy solutions and putting some digital capability around that. In an environment that we are living in today where industrial productivity is at a historical low, less than 1%, businesses need to be looking for new ways to drive efficiency and decarbonization, and digital is really an opportunity. We believe that the industrial internet is going to be as transformative to business as smartphones are to consumers today.
Thank you, Deb. And I'd just like to, sadly we're drawing to a close of this session, but I think, I've come away from hearing of our panelists feeling particularly inspired at hearing the targets, the goals, the strategies, the initiatives. And one of the things that really is coming through is innovation and partnerships. All of the companies that are up here on this panel have got partnerships going on in different areas of the world, in different regions, which are really driving change. And I'd like everyone now to welcome me to welcome them in saying thank you for a lively and thoughtful and value-added discussion. Thank you.